Meghan is an aerospace engineer, an adventure athlete, a keynote speaker, and most importantly, neurodivergent. Welcome, Meghan.
Thank you so much. I know, like most, I think people that are dyslexic or neurodivergent, we have like 20 different things happening to compensate, right? So,
Yes, well, as you said before we got on, ADHD is very prevalent among us neurodivergent people. So I think for me at least, I need to keep busy all the time. And it sounds like you do too.
yes, I do. Because if I'm not, my brain will wake me up at 3 a.m. anyway, spinning. So, I've got to be always like doing several different things at the same time. Good multitaskers.
So let's talk about what your neurodivergencies are outside of ADHD.
I was luckily diagnosed very young and then retested again as a young adult in my 20s. I am dyslexic. And we discovered it, like I said, when I was seven, because unfortunately, I had a teacher that was not a very good man. And he verbally and emotionally abused the heck out of me in front of the class.
Oh,
Would sit me in the corner, you're an idiot, you're stupid. Because I could not sort of when you're really learning to get into spelling and having spelling tests and learning to read. And even though, I mean, obviously I'm very smart and come from a very smart family, I was not able to catch on and I could not retain, the orders of the numbers or letters and which letters were which and sound out things. And he made it so difficult for me that I refused to read. I stopped reading. And my mom, of course, picked up immediately. And she had already noticed that somehow I wasn't quite adapting the same way my brother and sister were. And so she is the one who went to pediatricians to figure out. And back then, I am late 40s. And so not as much was known about it, but I was very lucky to get diagnosed and then have just really supportive parents that taught me to believe in myself.
well, and you talked about in your 40s and not as much was known. I mean, we haven't made that much headway considering how much research was done in the 70s.
Yeah.
And my mom was diagnosed with dyslexia in the 40s.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, they've known about it for so long, but it's just not a top priority
No.
for our country to focus on. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up very young in Southern California, but then I moved to a mountain town in Colorado in sixth grade.
Okay.
And so, yeah, where it was the schools were not, they were not as good as in Southern California at the time. But my mom, my father were really good at supplementing. And, obviously I grew up in a very academic family. My dad was a Rhodes Scholar to MIT, brilliant engineer and physicist. And so I had a lot of other things and they would teach me things, maybe not reading, but practice, like actually just experiments. And I just had a very supportive family that even though I had this, they kept telling me I could be anything I want to be and really held my hand as I went through the shame and the embarrassment. But if I went to class and I listened, generally I got through. I got through fine and I did very well with my grades. Because your dyslexia doesn't change your IQ or your intelligence. You just have to figure out the way to be tested correctly and that sort of thing. So I got through, but it was in college that it really caught up with me. And that's where oh man, I could not keep up with the reading. I could not keep up with how fast things were going. And it was so equation intensive in aerospace engineering. And I used to be so embarrassed and I didn't want anyone to ever know. And I wouldn't ask for help. And I crawled over that finish line. I had to take Calc 2, I think 3 times.
Wow.
And what I didn't realize is that if I had actually really asked for help and gotten accommodation, my life would have been a lot better. And as I got older and I realized, oh my gosh, I am actually good at what I do. Now I'm so proud to talk about it in a work environment and talk to younger people, elementary, high school, college, and also let them know what amazing skills it gives you and how that actually helps my career as an engineer. But yeah, I crawled over that graduation finish line.
Well, and so many people don't want to use the accommodations available. Like I was telling you earlier, I was cleaning or unpacking my son's bedroom, and I saw on his desk he had a little piece of paper that talked about one-on-one tutoring available because he's in college right now, and he didn't do very well in his midterm. And I have been a huge advocate. Our family talks very freely about dyslexia.
Yeah.
There's no shame in it in my household.
Yeah.
Yet is not getting the help he could be getting.
100%. And I talk about that all the time because I cannot even tell you how important it was, the support I had from my family. My mother normalized it in my home. My brother and sister are not affected, and no one was allowed to make fun of me. But I also was not given a get out of jail free card. I had to work hard. But I was in such a supportive family, yet I felt so much shame and embarrassment. And for me too, I remember in college, I'm like, no, I'm not going to go get help because I should be able to do this if I'm smart enough. Where for some reason, our little psyches, like when we're younger, we don't get it. And it is this thing that you want to prove to yourself. You think you can outthink it. And that is something, you're right. Like, I'm so glad you're talking about this and doing this podcast so that people who are younger, like, listen to me right now. Man, give yourself every opportunity to show how brilliant you are. And you do that through these special things with accommodation. I will say the last couple of years in college, I was able to pull myself out a little bit because I did finally get help. I did get accommodation. I went into testing where they read me that they verbally read me the test instead of while I read it. That changed my game. So I could actually show how smart I was, not from reading mistakes. And so, yeah, but I know it's so funny. I talk to people and their kids, they're going through it and they're like, she won't get help. I'm like, I can't tell you why, but I was the same way. And so, yeah, it's tough, but I guess we all have to kind of figure that out in our journey as well. But the best thing we can do is keep encouraging people to feel okay about going and getting the best out of themselves through accommodation.
Sometimes we feel like it's a crutch, but it
Yeah.
isn't. It's there to help us have a level playing field.
And I love that you say crutch because I'll use that example too. Let's take it something, a physical disability that you can see, which is different. Would you ask someone that perhaps has a prosthetic leg or doesn't have part of their leg and they are on crutches, would you ask them to expect themselves to run just as fast as someone else, like without accommodation?
Right. Or ask them to run without their prosthetic leg.
Yes, exactly. So it is. And I think when you can give people who are going through it and feel so embarrassed about it, when you could give them sort of an example like that, then maybe that helps, like, yeah, okay, I get it. But I think at the end of the day, when we're younger, we just want it to go away. We want to pretend it isn't there and maybe I can grow out of it. And then as an adult, though, you actually I realize what gifts dyslexia has brought me in my life and truly given me the drive and passion to achieve some extraordinary things. And I do not think I would be where I am and who I am 100% if I was not dyslexic. And given the choice, I would not go back. I would not give it up. And I love who I am today.
That's awesome.
We'd like to take a moment to thank our amazing sponsors who make this podcast possible. First up, we have 3D Learning Experts. If you or someone you love struggles with dyslexia, dyscalculia, or similar learning differences, 3D Learning Experts is here to help. They specialize in virtual tutoring for students of all ages. From first grade to adulthood, their expert tutors use the proven Orton-Gillingham method for language arts, structured and sequential program for writing success, and a multisensory approach to math. This ensures students enhance their reading, writing, spelling, and math skills in a way that suits their needs. Empowering students with confidence and success. That's what 3D Learning Experts is all about. To learn more, visit 3dlearningexperts.com. And when it's time to unwind, why not escape to fabulous Las Vegas with Casa Arce Vacations? Whether you're planning a quick getaway or a family reunion, Casa Arce Vacations offers 4 unique stays at one convenient location. Just under 3 miles from the Strip, choose from a cozy tiny house, 2 stylish studios, or a spacious 4-bedroom, 2-bath unit. All guests have access to amazing amenities, including a play pool, putting green, barbecue, fire pit, and each unit has its own private patio. Perfect for any occasion, they've got the ideal spot for your next adventure. Start planning your trip today at facebook.com/Casa RSA Vacations. Thank you to our sponsors for their support and for the incredible services they provide. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
Will you share with us some of your gifts that you feel you have because of your dyslexia?
Yeah. So, really, again, that ability to take on a challenge and never give up and be able to dedicate and focus and work hard has really brought me so many things. Let's talk about aerospace engineering. First of all, that's hard enough for an individual, even if you don't have a learning difference. And again, it chewed me up, but I never gave up. I was on academic probation a month. I did not give up. I went back. And now in my career as an engineer, I'm actually and a manager. I'm now the person that they put on projects that are on fire or in trouble because they know I'll go in with a positive approach and I won't give up. And so, and like being able to bring people around and have also, I think, any neurodivergence, you have a different way of looking at things. Things aren't always just linear for you. You've got to go creative different ways. So you look for different kinds of solutions. And it's also given me the drive to pursue other things in my life. So, growing up with dyslexia, the one thing that was my therapy and really helped build my self-confidence was the outdoors. And that was special time with my dad. He loved hiking. I loved it. We would go hike and I was really, really good at it. And I could see how proud he was. And again, it built my self-esteem to where then I could use that into school. But that love for the outdoors always carried on. And I was in a snowboarding accident in my early 30s and shattered my femur horribly, almost died, and was told I would have a cane the rest of my life. And instantly, from the drive that I knew as a little kid, I was like, nope, not going to be my life. I'm going to figure this out. So I did, after like 2 years of rehab and a metal allergy. I was so focused on being able to hike and climb again that when I was repaired, I went on to climb Kilimanjaro, which is the highest peak in Africa. I was so mentally strong from it. I was like, I'm going to go higher. And I set my sights on climbing the 7 summits. So that's the highest peak on every continent in the world, including Everest. And over about a 9-10 year period, I climbed every single one and I wouldn't give up. And then I added on to it. And I'm like, why stop there? So I've added on the North and South Pole, last degree ski, and that's called the Explorers Grand Slam. And only 12 women have ever done it, 4 US women. So I'm about to complete that in April, hopefully with the North Pole. And I hold a sign on every single summit and on these adventures that just say dyslexia gave me grit. And it did. It gave me this drive and this passion to achieve whatever I want to do. And I love now, teaching others how to do that. And it doesn't have to be Everest. It doesn't have to be a learning disability. It could be anything you set your mind to in life. Absolutely. I think those of us that are neurodivergent, I think that we had to learn struggle very early on in life, and we're kind of experts at it. And it's great to teach other people that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It gives me chills. But you're so right. I mean, every dyslexic adult that I've interviewed have said that they have resilience because we had to work harder as kids. I mean, I was not accepted to a high school because they said I wasn't college material. And so, I mean, I was like, I'm going to prove to them that I am. So
I know people, they'll ask me like, how are you? And the quick answer is I'm like, I'm a middle kid with a learning disability. That's how I'm like, I was never good enough for myself. But then, through that journey, you do learn it. And I love you say resilience. So grit is something I've created, and it stands for, and there's 2 G's, which is kind of funny because it's misspelled, which I thought was great. So 2 G's, so it's gratitude, growth, resilience, integrity, and tenacity. And those 5 keys really are the things that I've used my entire life to pull me through struggle and also push me towards any goal. And so, it's really been great to start to teach kids with neurodivergence that grit tool, adults, again, just anyone wanting to reach more of their full potential. And I owe it all to being that little dyslexic kid that was told you're not smart enough.
That's awesome. And so how do you help people? Do you help them online? How can people best reach you for?
Yeah, that is such a great question. So I love posting on Instagram a lot, and then, Facebook and LinkedIn, that sort of thing, but mainly Instagram. And I post everything from when I'm actually on an expedition, 2 months on Everest or skiing in negative 40 degrees across, a polar plain in South, Antarctica to the South Pole. So I love sharing along the time. And then I also share a lot of messages about all those keys that I talk about and how you can apply them every single day in your life. I love to talk about neurodivergence and dyslexia, inspire people that way as well to see the positive side of it. So the best thing you can do is subscribe to and follow me just on Instagram at GGRIT. But also I'm super excited because I have my first kids book in editing right now. And it's going to be a series. It's 1 out of a series of 6 that I already have. And it's really for that age, sort of when I was diagnosed. So kind of that 7 to 9 year old. When you realize that you're different and you don't know why, but also really how to find, the best out of yourself and be proud of who you are at the time. And in parallel, then I am writing my big girl book for all adults about grit and choosing to rise. And again, just my story and how I've used these tools and gotten better and better at changing my narrative when anything, bad happens. And, it applies not just to people with learning differences, but just anyone wanting to make something better of their lives, themselves. And it's really about choice and the choice you have every day to make such impact for yourself and for others.
I love that. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. It's so inspiring for everyone, and like whether they're neurodiverse or not. But sometimes we get people with neurodiversities can feel bad for themselves. Why me? And like you said, we all have the power to choose our destiny. So
Yeah. And like, it's, you know what, and it's all right too. And sometimes I'll post things too. I do like to post, I like to post the bad days too, because we get a pity party once in a while. We do. Like, or, I've been on a mountain and the weather came in, we had to turn from summit and it's disappointing, but you also have this understanding of like the difference between disappointing and devastating. And, I think that we, with our neurodivergence, we really owe it to ourselves. We have that choice to let it bring us down and be that victim, or to look for the wonderful things and the skills that's brought us and focus on those things. But we all have those moments where you're just like, oh my God, this is killing me. And that's where it's great to have a community then, where you can lean on each other and be inspired back again to be like, okay, I had my day of crying. Now I need to get up and get to work. And I love, what you're doing and doing podcasts and doing something that, again, can help spread a word and help inspire, and just one little thing. And it always happens when I do a podcast or I do something that I'm trying to inspire others, I'll get a message back. I get goosebumps right now. And that one little thing being like, I needed this today, or sharing their story, inspires me like tenfold back. And it just gives me that energy to keep doing it.
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, and I started this podcast because in my tutoring business, I run into a lot of parents who the moms don't have dyslexia and they just don't understand. And so they don't have the patience for their children, perhaps,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I mean, I have moderate dyslexia. My kids have profound and severe dyslexia, and I didn't understand some of the struggles they experienced. And I had my own struggles, So to be a parent who is the one who's not the gene that,
Yeah.
the gene that provided the dyslexia.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to understand what their child's going through and have better expectations of their child. Because like you said, your parents didn't allow your siblings to tease you, but also didn't allow you to just do nothing. And sometimes it's really hard to find that balance of how much to push and how much to support.
Oh, 100%. And I was just, because you're out talking, and I met a woman who, her son is about 23. And I have to be honest, I think that she's actually protected him so much. He doesn't have the self-esteem to try things on his own. And I do love, my mom was such an advocate for me and fought my battles to a certain point. And then she actually really was teaching me to fight my own. And I remember, now I think back, I thank her all the time when I see her. I'm like, you were a brilliant lady. Like, I remember in high school, the first time she's like, you know what, here's what I want you to have the meeting with the teacher. And I'm like, what? And she slowly started building me so that by the time I was in college, I'd call her for advice, but then I had to go deal with it. And I learned my voice, and it was really, really fantastic. But yeah, you're right. But there's no book on it too. There's books on it, I guess, but everyone's different and you have to figure it out. But I think platforms like this too, that you're doing with podcasts, there's also other things that parents won't realize about. Sure, I can understand conceptually that they're having trouble with letters and words and sounding things out, but there's a whole nother thing that goes along really with your self-esteem, with severe anxiety, OCD. I came down with major OCD about junior high school, from the stress and anxiety of someone's going to find out I'm dyslexic.
Wow.
And really, so there's all these other things that even for me, what I'm taking this platform to really speak on neurodivergence, I've really started reading on all the research there is that's out now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly why I do that. There's things I didn't realize were from my dyslexia I'm still discovering today. So, it's great for us to be able to talk about it. And also, yeah, you're right. Share with parents that, hey, what your child's doing, this is normal for neurodivergence, and to let those individuals know you are normal and what you're experiencing is normal and you're okay. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, there's so many things that you didn't realize. My mother, like I said, was diagnosed in the 40s. My mom was a teacher, and she had no clue what dyslexia looked like. She
Yeah.
just knew that she had that label. So when they said I had a reading disability, she didn't realize I was dyslexic. When I
Mhm.
started tutoring, and she said, I didn't have very many students who had dyslexia. I was like, Mom, 1 in 5 students are dyslexic, and you were an art teacher for 15 of the 25 years. You
Yeah.
had to have a ton of dyslexic students in your class.
Yeah.
But she just didn't even know what the signs were. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, many teachers don't know what it looks like. I mean, many of us don't even know because it looks so different in each one
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah, you're right. And it is so, there's so many great national, international foundations now that, their biggest things are really, and a lot of people don't know this, they work on a lot of lobbying for legislation to try to get more money into school systems so that there's just testing provided for every student so that no matter what, income level you're at, your child gets tested because this should not be just for a family who can afford to go get testing and tutoring. This should be available to
Right.
everyone. So
Yeah.
there's all the legislation that happens and awareness and fundraising and training teachers, which is really cool. I just did a keynote speech for a district in outside Dallas. And it's like 2,000 educators, administration, school systems, psychologists that come for 3 days intensive to help teachers teach better. And it was really, really cool that they do that. And, there's so much on the rise, but it takes communication and us spreading the word like you're doing on this podcast to really help encourage that movement to keep going.
Well, and Texas is one of the best states. That's where my kids were diagnosed. We moved to Texas.
Oh,
We moved to Texas, and within a week, my daughter's teacher said she's dyslexic.
wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
because they do educate the teachers there, and when the teachers are educated, then they can provide the support. Now it depends on the socioeconomics of the school
Yeah.
district
Yeah.
much support is provided, which I only learned later on in life. We were fortunate to be in a community that provided in school services for dyslexia.
Yeah, because you think about it too, in a lot of areas, and let's say, and especially, America is a melting pot. Let's say English is not even your first language, and you have a learning disability on top of that. That's gonna be very difficult to diagnose without people in your school system looking for it. So I just think there's so many people that, and we all as adults, we will meet people, and I talk about this a lot, where someone will be like, "Yeah, I'm undiagnosed," and really breaks my heart like what they went through and either parents who did not understand and really the abuse a lot of them left early from home, but they had to make their way, and they're all usually kind of own their own businesses because they had to, because they couldn't get the education or they couldn't work for anybody else, but now they're entrepreneurs. But everyone has a very different story that we can all learn from, and I hope it gives so many kids so many different examples of adults that have made something of their lives
Yeah.
with a learning disability.
Yes, yes. Well, my husband's Mexican American and his first language was Spanish. And so when I met him, he would always say he couldn't pronounce things right because English was a second language.
Mhm.
And at first I accepted that, but then I was thinking there's a lot of Hispanic Mexican Americans who can pronounce it correctly. And it
Yeah,
was because of his dyslexia that he couldn't hear the sounds correctly that
yeah.
so he thought it was because English was a second language, but truly it was because of his dyslexia.
Yeah, I know, and just so many people are not gonna be able to figure that out.
Right.
And yeah, and it affects us every day. I was just at an event last night. I met this woman for the first time, and her name's, and I won't be able to remember. Like, and we always have trouble with even like consonant or vowels, the way that they should sound. We can't
Right.
retain it. So I'm like, is it Kara or Kara? I won't know until I've asked her 20 times. I will not be able to retain it. And then I feel so bad because then people are like, oh, she doesn't remember my name. It's like, I just want to tell my like, it is not that I don't remember your name. It's just like, I literally have a problem with it. I will not
Absolutely.
be able to remember how the vowel sounds.
Yeah,
But
that's
that's
so
again,
true.
stepping into owning who you are and what's happening, and just be like, everyone, like when I run a new project or have a whole bunch of engineers that work for me, I'm like, I'm going to lay down the basics for you. I am dyslexic. Here is the best kind of email to send me. Because normally they want to, like, engineers want to do a novel. I'm like, I will not read it. I'm like, so here's the keys to dealing with, a professional dyslexic, and it works great and everyone has a good time. And it is about like no longer being embarrassed or ashamed, but fully stepping into your full neurodivergence and wearing it proudly, because it's going to make you more successful. You're going to give yourself the tools to be the best you can be. And I do a good job. And people need to realize that it does give you a special skill set.
Yes, that is such great information, because people who are neurotypical don't necessarily realize that. And these days, I guess no one really likes to read that in depth on things. But for us, it is more of a challenge. I discovered that I did a lot better reading on my phone than I do on the computer, because I see smaller pieces of it.
Yeah. Well, I can't, like, for me reading still, I prefer a book, because I still will take, it's something I learned as a kid, but I will take a plain index card and I'll put it under the line. I still do that today. It helps me read much faster. Otherwise my eyes do jump. And, but when you're on Everest and you only have a backpack, I did get used to a little Kindle, or on my phone, Kindle on my phone. But I've learned just ways to do it. You learn to adapt. Yeah.
Well, and with the Kindle, can't you have like it move the colored strip across?
I think you can. I've learned to break it down for the Kindle to work for me, but yeah, you're always doing something. But yeah, you've got to learn it, and then it's even like I work for a major corporation, and they'll be for everybody, oh, we're going to change to this software. Here's the 12-point step of how you're going to do it, and go to this document and do this. And one day I called them, I'm like, you do understand that these complex instructions with all these different things are a nightmare for a dyslexic? And they're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, if it's company wide, can you do one session and just have someone walk through it for all of us on a Zoom if you want to go to it? They're like, oh, we could do that. I'm like, thanks. That will save me like 5 hours. But it's at companies, they have initiatives, they think, but they don't realize if your brain doesn't work that way, you're not going to realize there's an issue.
Right. Well, and I'm still teaching my assistants, after a few years of working for me, bullet points.
Yeah.
Put bullet points. It makes it so much easier to read than a big paragraph.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, it's part of what I tell my teams too. I'm like, you can send me the thing in detail if you want. And so I have something to reference, but yeah, do a bullet point. I want, caps. I want highlight on very special things. And I'm like, and if you need a response immediately, I need you to text me or call me and give me the heads up. And this is how you're going to help me help you. And it works, but you've got to figure out what works for you and communicate it to others. And generally I found people are really, really great about it.
Well, and that's why I think it becomes easier for adult dyslexics than it does children, because we have had a lifetime to figure out what works for us.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So yeah. And you have to teach kids to be patient with themselves, give themselves grace, give themselves hug. Like, let them know you are going to be frustrated and this is going to be hard, but you're going to get through it. Yeah.
I love that. You have given so many great tips and pointers, but do you have like anything else that you would like to share with parents or dyslexic people just before we leave?
Oh, I love that. And I mean, like I said, it is one of the things, like, part of what I teach with GRIT too is I don't try to sugarcoat things. I don't try to tell someone with dyslexia that they're going to have the same, it's going to be the same for them as everyone else. It's not. Like I just said, it's going to be difficult, but you've got to keep reinforcing that you love yourself. You are just as smart. You just have to figure out a different way to do things. And so for parents, again, it is like you said, I understand if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to really understand, but show that kid patience, hold their hands when they cry, help pick them back up, and go talk to teachers if you're concerned about things, get involved, find out these other, like my parents used to do something as simple as this, reading. Back in the day, we got like a little recorder. I'd read into a recorder. I wouldn't retain any of it, but then I'd play it back for myself. And so I could hear it verbally while I read it, and then I'd retain it. And like these little things that were so great. And I think there are a lot of books out there that help, but there's so much on social media now too. I have parents reach out to me all the time. Reach out, ask questions. You want a little card or something that helps boost your kid's self-esteem from another dyslexic. I think having mentors is an amazing thing, that they can see all these amazing entrepreneurs that are neurodivergent and help them focus on that. Or athletes, giving them positive images of working hard gets you where you want to be. I think is just invaluable for them, because if your parents give up on you, you give up on yourself. And we all know so many people that weren't diagnosed, and that's what happened. And it's very scarring. And again, me having such supportive parents, how much shame and embarrassment I felt with an extremely good support system. And it was hard enough with that. So anyway, yeah, but I would love it. Follow me on Instagram and ask questions. I always love to talk to classes and schools. Of course, I do keynote speaking for the big people, companies. GRIT works for any sort of company. I love to talk to companies too about how their neurodivergent employees will make their corporation a better place. So all sorts of things. I'm just down to talk about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meghan, for taking the time to share all of your insight and your experiences with us today.
Thank you for opening the stage for us to be able to talk about it and help give other people ideas and inspire. I mean, the work that you're doing means so much to so many.